Hey there, my name is Megan and welcome to my channel, or welcome back. Today I'm going to be discussing the most disappointing books that I read in 2023. I have 5 books that I'm going to be discussing. These are books that I did not DNF. I read the whole thing and they just did not work for me for one reason or another. Now, this is not to say that these books are bad, and if you enjoyed these books, or even if they're some of your favorites, then I am so happy for you. Literature is subjective. We all experience different things when we read and have different biases and perceptions that we bring into our reading. So these are just my personal opinions. But before we go ahead and get on into the video, if you are not already subscribed to my channel, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, as well as the little bell icon so you can be notified every time I post new content. I post new videos every Monday, Thursday, and Saturday. Also, don't forget to check down in the description box below for links to my Amazon shop, where I list out all the books that I recommend and discuss on my channel, as well as my Patreon, where I do seasonal and bi-monthly book giveaways. So the first book that I really disliked was Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. I do own this book. It's downstairs. I just didn't feel like going to grab it. But this is the third and final book in the Dark Artifices trilogy. And I enjoyed the first 2 books well enough. Compared to the other 2 series that come before this, it wasn't my favorite. So the main problem that I had with this series, or at least this last book, is that she spent way too much time developing these intricate plot lines for this huge cast of characters. And it bogged the story down so much, and a lot of these plot lines had nothing to do or very little to do with the main plot. And I started to get really frustrated because I felt like the plot was just meandering along. I was just reading stuff that had nothing to do with the main conflict. I feel like the author was focusing too much on, oh, I need, to discuss these social issues in this book, or I need to represent this group of people in this book, rather than just focusing on crafting a good story. And in my opinion, it bogged down the entire story. At the end, or towards the end of the book, I just started speed reading. Like, I was just so over it. The book is it's over 800 pages, I think. I wanted to be done with it. So I think I sped read it and have no desire to ever pick it up or read it again. And it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth for Cassandra Clare in general, which is really sad because I loved The Mortal Instruments when I read it years ago. But I do want to give her Chain of Gold, that series, a try. I don't know. I just am having like reservations after reading Queen of Air and Darkness. You guys will have to let me know how her next series is and if I should even really bother picking it up. The next book is Empire of Silence by Christopher Ruocchio. This is book 1 in his Sun Eater trilogy. This is an adult sci-fi. And this is a very beloved series on BookTube and in the sci-fi community, I feel like, from what I've seen. And it just didn't work for me. However, I don't want to discourage you from trying it if adult sci-fi is your thing. I feel like this was definitely me. I couldn't connect with the main character. I thought that he was portrayed as just being way too perfect, and I had no sympathy for him because everything he attempted, he was successful at. Like, he could speak a bunch of languages, he could draw, he was a freaking gladiator that no one could beat. He was a leader. No one is infallible. Like, give your character flaws, like, make them relatable. And I understand that in this world, there's like genetic engineering and you can make, humans better, but it just wasn't relatable to me, So that was the main reason that I decided to not continue, as well as the author not pacing the plot very well. It took a good 2/3 of the book for us to get to like the main plot that actually interested me. The first beginning of the book was just basically going through the main character's journey. And it just took a long time to establish a main plot, and by then I was kind of over it and frustrated. So those are the main reasons that I'm not continuing with the series. Then we have The Changeling by Victor LaValle. This was an adult fantasy. It's kind of like a maybe magical realism, horror, I don't even know. And this book I had such high hopes for. So I started physically reading it, and I couldn't get into it, so I switched to the audiobook, and I eventually finished it on audiobook. And I can honestly say this is one of the worst books that I have ever read. I do have a full review for it. I did not like the writing style at all of this author. It was so plain and boring, and for a story that is supposed to have magical elements, it was no figurative language, no imagery, no sensory detail. It was boring as crap. And not only that, but I feel like the author is very sexist because he, even though his main character is a male, he portrays all the men in this book as complete pricks. Like, they are horrible to their families, they suck, they're horrible. Like, if you're sexist against men, like, that's you, but that's not true of every male. Like, don't generalize. And then there were just some things that were thrown into the story that just did not make sense. And then we get to the end of the story where all of a sudden it's magical. Now we're in the fantasy aspect of the story, which has to do with this like Nordic fairy tale and a goblin. It just was not cohesive. The writing was horrible. The presentation of different characters was just not well done, in my opinion. And I have no desire to ever read anything else by this author. Then we have The Family Upstairs by Lisa Jewell. This was the first Lisa Jewell book that I've read, so I'm really glad that I tried her as an author because she's a pretty popular thriller author. But in this book, we're following a character who is found as a baby in this house that used to be owned by like a family that had children living in the house, and then the family completely disappeared. And this main character is set to like inherit this house where she was found. So she is trying to go through the mystery of what happened to the family, her family that lived there. So my main issue with this book, and I don't know if I can go into it without complete spoilers, was like, what exactly was going on in that house, which is kind of the main mystery. I didn't like it at all. I did not like the explanation that the author gave, the way that this one character, David, was able to manipulate other people, grown adults with logic and reason. Like, it didn't make sense. I felt like it was not explained how David was able to exert control over this family and manipulate these people. That was not explained. So the result of these characters doing whatever he wanted just didn't resonate with me. I'm like, I can't put two and two together. I don't have enough information. And I didn't like it. It was weird. I don't know how else to say it. So this also put me in a position where I really have no desire to read any more Lisa Jewell books. And then the last book is Starling House by Alexi Harrow. So this one is on here. However, even though I didn't enjoy this book as much as I thought I would, I am not going to try this author again because there were definitely things that I did like about it. So I do want to try reading The Thousand Doors of January. I do own that book. And if that book does not work for me, then I will know that she's not an author for me. But in this book, we're following a main character who lives in like this podunk small city in Kentucky, I believe. And she is trying to provide for her brother who's in high school. And there is this haunted house in this small city. And she's basically like called to be a part of this haunted house and the man that lives there. And there's this whole like history that goes into this house, and we learn about that history. So it wasn't a bad read. I did enjoy the writing style. I love haunted houses, but I did not like the main character, and I did not like the way that certain ideas were portrayed. And I also was hoping for a more plot-driven story, and this was more character-driven, which is fine. I just didn't think it was balanced enough. I enjoy both, but this one was way more character-driven, which I wasn't expecting. But it basically had to do with the main character. Like, I couldn't stand her. You know, I can read about an unlikable character, but this character was doing things that just didn't make sense to me. For example, she was complaining all the time about how she has no opportunity and she's poor, but yet she dropped out of school. Like, girl, do you know that there is a direct correlation between amount of education and money that you'll make over the course of your lifetime? That is a proven fact. Go get your GED. And then she was like stealing from the store she worked at. I don't care what your situation is. Like, there are other ways to go about getting what you need honestly than stealing. So this book just didn't hit well for me in a lot of places, even though I did enjoy the fantasy aspect and I did enjoy the haunted house aspect. All right, you guys, that is it for my most disappointing reads of 2023. Let me know in the comments if you read any of these books and what you thought of them, or if you have any books that just didn't work well for you in 2023, and I will see you all in another video soon. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.